Thank you for tuning in to the 5th episode of What Do You Say Anime. Today's topic is on the new Netflix documentary, Enter the Anime. A documentary focused on trying to explain the popularity of anime by interviewing several people whose job it is to help make and create anime. For this episode, I wanted to get a counterbalance of my weebness and bring in a special co-host who essentially doesn't understand why I watch anime in the first place. My girlfriend Kayla. So sit back, hold on to your Dragon Balls, and let's get this party started. Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Peter, and with me today is my lovely co-host, Kayla. Kayla, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, this is Kayla.
All right. Kayla is my girlfriend. Kayla, can you give the people your perspective on anime and maybe some animes you have seen in the past?
Sure. So, before I met you, really didn't know that much about anime at all.
That's fair.
Obviously, I watched Pokemon, because who doesn't? Other than that, I really just thought it was a super nerdy thing, to be honest. Yeah. Or, didn't really know.
Yep.
Now that I've known a little bit more about it, I appreciate the art more, and I can see the appeal of it, but I still am not, a firm believer.
Yeah, and I'm doing my best to try to convince her to watch certain things. I did heavily persuade her to watch A Silent Voice, and we are one episode through Haiku, if you remember watching that, the volleyball anime. But today, the whole point of this podcast is we watch the Netflix documentary Enter the Anime, and I wanted to get two different perspectives. One, mine, who watches anime a lot, and Kayla's perspective, who has watched very little. And this documentary is based off of a filmmaker who is trying to grasp why the anime culture and why anime is so popular in general. And it's an hour-long I'm going to say this right now, a quote-unquote documentary on Netflix, because we have some things to say about that. First, I'm going to jump into how they start the documentary from somebody who watches a lot of anime, and that is to talk to the director of Netflix's Castlevania, where if you are a true anime nerd like me, Castlevania is not an anime. It is not made in Japan. It is made in North America. So to a lot of people, it's not considered an anime, even though it is animated. Even there's a lot of controversy. If you might not know about that, Kayla,
I knew that.
a lot of people don't consider anime made in America as real anime. So,
that was one of my questions, too. Was like, does it count? Because he wasn't from Japan, was he?
He's not from Japan, and it's not made in Japan.
I was like, this is stupid.
Yes, it is made it's made for Netflix, at Netflix. And I thought that was a very strange way to start off the documentary for somebody who has watched anime in the past, but I'm assuming to you it probably meant nothing.
Well, I mean, she started off by saying, I literally don't know anything about anime. And she goes ahead and proves herself right.
That's true.
Very first
that's a very valid point. She does not know anything about anime, so she goes and visits I guess he's the director of Castlevania, that is not anime. So actually, for somebody, if this is targeted towards new people, maybe that makes sense. But I guess for somebody like me, I found that very, like, that doesn't make any sense to me type of thing.
I mean, I feel like it could have been utilized really well if she was like, don't know anything about anime, I'm gonna go to the one person who I know who, like, maybe this is anime.
Yes.
But, like, she doesn't ever go in to explain, like, oh no, I actually figured out this is what it means. She's just like, oh, this is, like, one anime, and what, like, she clearly doesn't ever learn what it is.
Yes.
But it could have been.
It kind of feels like it has a sense of, like, she Googled, well, in the documentary, she literally Googles what is anime, and I feel like what popped up was an ad for Netflix. And it's like, hey, Netflix has anime because they can, like, track your IP and be like, hey, I bet you have Netflix. Anime has Netflix.
She also works for Netflix.
Yes. So
I'm sure there was some sort of, like,
since you
push
said
for that.
Since you said that, let's transition into that. So in the show, the lead, so the person who's directing the movie and producing the movie and filming the movie, or the documentary, is interviewing different directors and producers and, like, character designists for shows such as Castlevania, Be the Beginning, Baki, Agretzko, Seven Seas, Ultraman, Ghost in the Shell. And what do all of those have in common? They are all on Netflix. So It's like, this is why I was doing quote unquote, it's a documentary, because it's more of an ad for anime on Netflix. And
well, at the end of it, though, it did say, like, these are all now streaming on Netflix.
Yes, it did.
So
that was a thing. So if you don't know these shows, you're probably just like, oh, they're picking a wide variety of shows, because there's some that are, like, CG, some that are, like, stop.
I already forgot what CG was.
CG is, like, computer graphics. It's like it's not, like, hand drawn. It's, like, made on, like, computers. Where, like, they're using, like, I don't know the what they use to make it, but, like, a lot of times some animes are, like, hand drawn, and then they turn them into panels and they can make the anime like that. Where this CG is, like, they use computer graphics to make the anime itself, so it looks a little clunky. That's the best way. A lot of CG animes are really poor looking, because I don't know if the technology is there or not, but they can't put the details in like you can with, like, hand drawn, because yeah. So
is that different than the 3D one too? Is there another?
So it's different from, like, I'm trying to think of, like, an example.
Well, the one guy, I thought that there was a different one where he was, like, punching him.
Yeah, so that was so they showed, like, two violent punching ones. I think it was Baki, and I think Be the Beginning was the other one, which are both CG animes.
Oh.
They're the same, but, like, it varies in different in terms of, like, production value, where if they have more money and time, they can make it look better. And they could also make the animes faster in CG.
They also talked about the stop motion one too.
The stop motion, yeah. So going back, so they picked, like, a large variety of animes that they're doing interviews with the directors for. So CG stop, what's it called? Stop action, stop motion, like regular anime, like Agretzko. Yeah, and they just picked, like, a wide variety. But if you were familiar with, if you're not familiar with what's on Netflix, you would think that they did, like, a nice variety of shows to pick from. But if you are familiar with Netflix's lineup, then you would know that all of these are Netflix shows. So it's like, you're not really picking something out of a variety. You're literally just picking on what's currently airing on Netflix, or what's going to be currently airing on Netflix. So I really did not like that part.
Yeah.
And how they, like, did the interviews with the directors I thought was, like, really bad. They didn't really talk a lot. I shouldn't say they did definitely talk about the anime itself that they're interviewing about, but I feel like they wanted you to have some form of, like, background on these shows. So, for example, for the Be the Beginning, they were asking the director questions about season 2. Mm-hmm. And so if you're familiar with anime, maybe you know about season 2, but if you're new to this genre, you have no idea like what the hell they're talking about. And like the whole point of this documentary is targeted from somebody who doesn't know anything about anime. So I thought, why are you asking questions about a season 2 of a show when you don't know what anime is? So that was really, really confusing to me. And they didn't really do like a whole lot of background on... I guess for one of the scenes they did do backgrounds on like past works, but a lot of times it was literally just like promoting whatever they're doing on Netflix right now. And like, I don't know, they had the director from Be the Beginning who has made over 20 different animes, and he asked, one of the questions is, what is like your favorite anime that you worked on? And he says Be the Beginning, so it's of course the one anime he's made that's on Netflix. It's like, is that really your most like respected like work you've ever done, is this Netflix anime that I don't think it's kind of popular, but no one in like my circle has watched that show. A lot of shows on Netflix people don't watch.
That's true.
So I feel like that's part of the reason why this is more of an ad than a documentary.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because I think that if they actually made a really good documentary towards people who aren't familiar with anime, it would be like a really good, like, there's no movies like that out there or documentaries out there like that. So like, if you were actually interested in anime, this is a really good type of documentary to watch, and then instead they turned it into an ad.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's just...
Yeah, when they were talking about the second season of whatever show, I was
like,
I literally don't give a fuck. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, tell me where you came up with the idea of this. Like, tell me what inspired this. But instead it was like, oh, I'm not going to give a spoiler for season 2.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then they had like clips and scenes talking about like the stories of the show from like, I think one of the first ones they did was Baki, which is like a prisoners beating the crap out of each other type of thing.
Classic.
Where there's like scenes of the action happening and like the story's progressing and they're talking about the story, and it's like, I don't know anything about this show. Like, who are you trying to appeal this to? Yeah. And they do a really, really poor job of explaining like what the purpose of the interviews are, because it seems like she's the main lady who's doing these interviews is like she sets out to Japan essentially to like interview these people, and she has like this goal in mind that she wants to learn anime. So how she's going to do it, she's going to interview these directors of these really popular shows, and then how is she going to do it? She's going to be asking questions about episode 7. It's like, what? How are you learning what anime is from this? And then they do like a really poor job of explaining like anime culture in Japan. They literally, there's like a scene of them in like a fashion district. We're showing different people's fashion styles these are from anime related things, and they're not at all. If you remember when there's like 50s greasers dancing in a park, that's not based off anime.
There's not a Grease version of anime?
No, there's not.
Anime version of Grease.
There's music and drama. Actually, I don't know if there is a Grease anime. Let me know if there is a Grease anime out there, but it's like explaining these cultures that are like, there's like some Lolitas. And
is that an anime thing? Like
kind of.
Like a pedophilia type of like young girl thing?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's why I was like,
yeah.
Ew.
Okay, so
I don't agree.
I guess we could branch into that for a second real quick. So people who are like into that thing they're called lolicons.
Oh my god.
So there's a lot of debate about this. I feel like this could be a separate podcast. But me personally, I do not find those characters attractive or sexualized in any way, but there's people who that's their thing, and they justify it because it's animated.
I was gonna say, you shouldn't be with me then, because I'm far older than 12.
Yes. So there's a very popular anime YouTuber, and his name is Digibro. He's like one of the top, I don't know, let's say 10 like anime YouTubers out there. and he has a very, very strong stance on this in terms of he is pro lolicon because since they're animated, that it's fine to sexualize little girls. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially there's like a lot of debate about this. Yes, so I don't know. It's back to what we were saying about this. Okay, so back to this. They're in this fashion district, and they're explaining all of these different. Oh man, something's going on downstairs. But they're explaining all these different fashion senses that are based off anime, which is like completely not true. It's like they have fashion. I don't know how to describe. It's really hard to describe. But the documentary essentially makes it seem like these styles are made from anime. Like, if it wasn't for anime, these people would not be dressing like this. And it's like, that's not true at all. People express themselves in ways all the time, regardless of, like... I mean, they can branch it out from, like, music, culture, TV. I guess you can say anime, too, or something like that. But, like, the documentary, like, makes a point, like, all these people are like this because of anime. And it's like, that's not true at all.
I mean... Well, that was one of the things that I was thinking about.
Branch off of it. Go for it.
Because in Japan, I feel like it's a culture that's largely not as expressive. So I feel like there's a way for people to really express themselves through anime and through those characters and stuff like that. I mean, I agree that, you know, these ideas aren't just born from anime and they're solely because of anime, but I think largely, like, if you think about Western culture and movies, like, if you were to think of anime as, like, all that, like, you have that here in human-related movies or kids' movies or music or whatever that people do.
Yes, and like you said, like, expressing yourselves, a lot of times in, like, Japanese schools, like, you're only allowed to have black hair, and they all wear uniforms regardless if it's like a public school or something like that. So especially like this fashion district scene where it's like it's anime. I don't know. It's just like it's not. Sure, part of it is from anime, and a lot of anime a lot of shows in anime reflect like these fashion that people are showing off. But to say that the anime culture is these people expressing themselves, I was like, this is. Like, everyone knows that's not true. Yeah. Like, it's kind of just, like, there's a lot of things where it kind of drove me crazy. It'd be different if she says, like, oh, these people look, since she's, like, newer to anime and stuff like that, it would be cool to, like, if she said, like, I've seen this in anime, and it's cool that people are reflecting it, because, like, it's, like, a Japanese culture thing, but it's not from anime, it's, like, a Japanese culture thing, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the entire documentary, quote unquote, was more of a commentary on just like media platforms than it was on anime. Like, oh, there's this type of media that you can do, and these are the people who design the costumes, and these are the people who wears the costumes. Like, that's such an easy answer. You literally can say that about anything. Mm-hmm. Like, it was not specific to what makes anime like special or such, like, you know, like a concentrated group. Like, I feel like I didn't learn anything about that. All I learned was like, oh, it's like anything else.
Yes, because like for example, they have like picture people with like and like colorful clothes and like pink hair and stuff like that, and they said like this is anime. It's like, well, what if they got inspired from like David Bowie or something like that? It's like you don't know, right? Like, unless you literally like walked up to them, which they don't do this in the documentary. Like, you walked up and be like, hey, how are you inspired by, like, your fashion? And they said, like, oh, like, I watched this anime and it really inspired me to, like, dress like this, and I really like that. Then that'd be different. But they're just like, here's a person with pink hair, they watch anime. It's like, that's not how it works. And it's like, it kind of, like, the whole point of, like, the documentary is, like, diving into anime culture. It's like, now you're just stereotyping people. And it's like, are you trying to, like, dive into this culture, or are you just, like, guessing? And
she was doing it for a job.
Doing it for a job for sure, and like 95% guessing. Yeah. Like, oh, I have to dig deeper, so I'm going to go to Toei Animation, the Disney of Tokyo, or like of animation. It's like Toei Animation is not the Disney of anime. Like, I looked it up right now. Do they have giant names of shows? Absolutely. They created they created, but they have produced Dragon Ball Z, which is, even my mom has heard of Dragon Ball Z. You might have not heard of One Piece, but One Piece is like the number 1 or number 2 anime in the world. Yes, it's huge. It has like 870 episodes or something like that, and it's still going. So I'm trying to they're like the DreamWorks of animation, maybe. They are not the Disney. Like, a lot of their shows are from the 90s that were huge. They haven't came out with anything like massive. Let me just so they did Dragon Ball Z, Digimon, Sailor Moon.
Yeah, those are all
the Slam Dunk. So these Yu-Gi-Oh. So they do a lot of like these definitely kid-based shows, targeted, I'd say, and I can see how they can kind of say it's like saying they're the Disney of anime is such a terrible because Disney comes out with bangers every year.
That's true.
And if I asked you to name all the Disney movies off the top of your head, you could probably list 20 in 5 minutes if you wanted to, or something like that.
I could probably do way more than that, but okay.
And absolutely. And I had to Google Toei Animation shows.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that they made Dragon Ball Z. So it's kind of like, I don't know, to say that they are the Disney. This is just like one of the things that drives me crazy in the animation is that they make these statements on anime, and it's like, that's not true at all. Like, anybody who watches anime knows that Toei Animation is not Disney of it. But if they're trying to target somebody new, you might think, since they told you that, that's just false information, that they'd be like, oh, look at that. Oh, I should look up Toei shows. Oh, by the way, there's a Toei show on Netflix. You should watch it. It's like, it's just such a terrible ploy towards trying to target these like shows that they did. And I don't know, it kind of drove me crazy that they consider this a documentary, essentially.
Yeah, I would have been far more interested if they scrapped all the directors and just went to talk to people on the streets. Like, you know, what animes do you like? Like, how do they relate to your life? What got you started in it? Like, that would be way more interesting to me, and I would learn a lot more.
The one thing I actually really liked, that I had to tap on your shoulder, because I'm like, hey, this part is actually good compared to the rest of the documentary, is when they're...
I thought that was when I was falling asleep.
Yeah. It's when they were talking about, like, what would you do if you had more time?
Yeah.
Like, would you continue living in Tokyo, to that guy who made some other Netflix show? He's like, no, I don't want to live in Tokyo. Like, and the other people's like, what if I had more time? I would sleep. And it's like, that was cool, because you got like a in-depth personal thing of who these people are, which I thought that's what the whole point of like interviewing these directors,
right?
Is you can learn who these people are. And it's like, that was that last 45 seconds of me being actually entertained by this documentary.
Yeah, I'm
trying to think that, and then I like that part, and then kind of the part where they did the singer, where they showed her singing Cruel Angel's Thesis from one of the most... It's from one of the most influential shows of all time. Mm-hmm. It's called Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Why have I not heard of it?
I know, right?
Clearly I've been influenced by it.
Yes, but it's a very, very influential, popular show. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that they did something different, because they did, instead of the director of Neon Genesis, they did the girl who did the opening song for it, which is one of the most popular songs in Japan of all time. So that was kind of cool. And I liked how they kind of like talked about her favorite part of like Neon Genesis, and like how it's like influenced, because now she's like a pop star kind of from like this like song from anime, and it kind of like transcends just anime but like into music and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. So I like that part a lot. But man, I can't really name a whole lot of good things about the movie, did you have anything that you liked?
I mean, I would agree with you on those two, like the woman singer and then the part where like you actually learn something about the directors. I think that was like the only collective maybe 5 minutes of this hour-long documentary that like makes you actually relate to them as people.
Yes, and thank God it is an hour long, because although we had to take a break and I looked at my phone and saw that there's 19 minutes left in the movie. I'm like, really? Like, I mean, I guess we're this far, we might as well finish it. But that was like a real, like, I don't know how to describe it.
I really thought it was like one of those moments when you're in like a time warp. You're like, it's literally been 7 hours. How is there still 19 minutes left? Yes.
It's like at work and you're working and you think like 2 hours has passed by and you look down the clock and it's been 20 minutes. You're like, what? Like, it's only been 20 minutes? It's kind of the same thing with this documentary where it's like, when is it going to end? I do not want to watch this anymore. There's so many scenes of just false information. The scene where it looks like they're like spying on the director for like interrogating him.
Yeah, he was like in a jail cell, which
it's
was
like
stupid.
Yeah, it's like you set up this interview for a director and then you're making it seem like he's in prison and you're trying to question him. It's like, what part of you, like in terms of just like overall filmmaking, like what part of you thought that this was a good idea? Like there was no part of it where it was like, this is some edgy and compelling stuff. It's like this, I've never seen this before in a movie. It's like, there's probably a reason why, because this is terrible. It was...
My guess was that she had to do it because Netflix paid her to, and probably, no offense, but probably not that many people are going to watch it.
I feel like, because this definitely got some steam in the anime community just because of how big of a name Netflix is. And
that's true.
And, like, I like the name Enter the Anime. Like, it's like, since the basis is trying to introduce people to anime, it kind of had like it had a good like selling point. Like if someone said, you need to watch Enter the Anime, the documentary, I'm like, it sounds kind of cool. And then it's like, then you start, I did a little bit of research before watching it, and I realized how bad it got pandered, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to like do this, because a lot of times people say one thing and it's like, I don't know, not as bad or not as good as somebody says, and they were right on the money. This is trash.
Well, I had no expectations going into this movie, and somehow it did not meet them.
Yes. I'm going to play a game real quick with you.
Oh, God.
On a scale from 1 to 10, what do you think its IMDb score is? So let's say The Godfather is like a 9 on IMDb.
I know what the scoring is on IMDb.
Okay. I'm just like, give you a relative.
Okay, Godfather's 9. What's A Silent Voice?
Probably like, they rate anime movies lower, so it's probably like an 8 point. So I'd say like
That's
8.
Really high.
Yeah, but like the movie's great, so it should be a 10. But I think it's at like the 8 to 8.5.
I would give it a 2.3.
Wow, that's pretty good. It was a 2.9.
What?
Yes. So that's like gives you a pretty good example. I think it has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's not surprising. So that means that everybody should trust my word on anime then.
What's that?
Because I was really close in the IMDb score.
Yes. But I guess the biggest thing is for someone who like me and someone like you who has watched this, like who is this? Who do you think this is like targeted for? Like it's kind of like a hodgepodge of like everything, and it's like targeted. It's trying to target one group, and it does like a really bad job at targeting all groups, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly like. If I were to recommend anybody to watch this, I would just say don't.
Yes. And I wish I had a better example of like something to watch instead of this. It's like definitely like introduce somebody to
your podcast.
That's hey, you
Got
said
a plug.
you said it, not me. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question though before we log off on this episode of the podcast.
Okay.
You're a big book reader.
Yep.
You read a lot of books.
Oh, where is this going?
What's tell people what your favorite, like, you have a couple favorite books in mind, like your all-time favorite books. So maybe someone who reads a book, maybe.
Why you gotta do this to me?
Because I want the people.
The
I want this is part of it.
You could have asked me before.
I could have, but this is really, that's what makes the podcast fun.
Okay.
Well, name like your top 3 books of all time.
Americana.
Americana.
By Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Bless you.
She's a great writer. Okay. Probably Housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson. And I don't know.
Okay.
There's a poem book that I really like.
Okay.
Milk and Honey. Okay, sorry.
Milk and Honey. Okay.
Yeah.
Of all the books you've read, what book would make the best anime?
Well, those are like realistic fiction.
This realistic fiction anime.
Harry Potter.
That's a good one. I think Harry. I actually made a Facebook post. I said Harry Potter would be an amazing anime.
What?
Yes, I think that's a really good answer.
Apparently, I need to sock you harder because I didn't see that.
It's probably from a couple years ago.
No.
Okay. Do you have any other closing statements before we head off?
No.
Would you recommend this documentary to anybody?
Unless you want to not be interested in anime.
I think it's a really good movie
yes.
to watch if you're trying to fall asleep.
I mean, I can think of other things to watch.
Okay.
To fall asleep.
So on here we do a scale from 1 to 10, solid numbers. What would you give this documentary? Okay, quote documentary.
2.
I would also give it a 2. I think if it's your first time watching anime, or your 100th time, or your 1000th time, I think this documentary does absolutely nothing. It's an ad for Netflix on anime, and I do think, personal conspiracy theory, that Netflix will take over the anime scene, but that's down the road. So
well, Netflix is going to take over human life as we know it. So.
Amazon and Netflix.
That's true.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, that wraps up episode 5 of the podcast. Kayla, thank you for being such a trooper.
I was forced into this.
You had a choice. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.